are going to keep this program going and shifting our focus of conversation a little bit to a conversation on mental health. I know you've probably already seen him here at the summit, but I am thrilled to reintroduce Daryl DMC McDaniels to stage. Yeah, you may have heard on Monday night. That's right. Hopefully you heard on Monday night he debuted a brand new song with us. We're really excited to have him here at the summit, and we're really excited for this conversation. As you know, Daryl is a founding member of the world-famous hip-hop group Run DMC. He's one of the most influential musical acts in hip-hop and music generally. They've been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, received a Grammy for Lifetime Achievement, incredibly accomplished. And Daryl's also an author and co-founder of the Felix Organization, a nonprofit focused on children who grow up in the foster care system. And Daryl is going to be joined on stage by Michael London. Michael is the founder and CEO of UWill, whose mission is to expand mental health access and services to college students to meet the growing demand for mental health resources and support students. And it's an online platform that facilitates video and message-based counseling in a secure environment. And he's previously the founding CEO for Bloomberg Institute and founded a company called Examity, which was a world leader in learning validation and online proctoring. And it's really exciting because DMC is actually a mental health advisor for UWill, so we're really excited for this discussion. And it's going to be moderated by April Goble Montgomery Goble, who's the executive director of KIPP Chicago, the leading charter school network in Chicago. And we're really excited for the three of them. So let's give it up for DMC, Michael, and April.
One, two, 1, 2. Mic check, 1, 2. Hello, everybody.
Well, hi, everyone. I'm so excited to have this conversation with Daryl and Michael. I have to say, I was texting my grandmother, who's 91, on the way here, and I was saying that I was very nervous because she thought I was giving a speech. I said, no, it's not a speech, Grandma. I said, I get to lift up a story of someone that I've really admired for many years. So, Daryl, I think that I said this to Michael as well. I think the work that you're doing, I see it in a different light now that I've been studying it. I feel like you all are doing the work of humanitarians, and I think the shifting of the mindsets, the bravery that you're exhibiting by sharing your story, your vulnerabilities, it's not easy, and I think it's beautiful. So I hope I do a good job lifting up your story. So I would love to start with you sharing a little bit about your journey with mental health and how you've thought about the stigma related to mental health.
Right. I didn't know when it actually began. It began early in my life, and it was crazy how I met you. But the introduction to my mental health journey started in 1993. In 1993, Run DMC recorded an album called Down with the King. And if you'll remember, in 93, hip-hop had changed. We wasn't as involved anymore, but we were still respected, like, because of you, pioneer this and that. But Pete Rock, one of the greatest producers in hip-hop, produced it Down with the King title track. That song did what people say Run DMC did for Aerosmith at 86, who walked this way. It brought us back. So as people, we have a lot in common. But it put us back on the road, back on MTV, back on the radio, back on the big tours. The moment that happened in 83, the very next day I woke up and I wanted to kill myself. And I didn't know what it was. It was this void in me. And I looked back at my whole life and I was like, okay, I'm Darryl McDaniels from Hollis, Queens, New York. Byford and Banner is my mother and father. Running Jay is my friends. Hip hop, first to go gold, first to go platinum, first on the cover of Rolling Stone, first with the sneaker deals, first on MTV. Like, I went through my whole life and it was just something missing. But I didn't know what it was. And it was because of this void, I got really depressed. And then that caused me to start drinking a case of Old English, 40 ounces, not just cans, a day, a case a day. And that went from Jack Daniels and Jim Beam and Johnny Walker being my best friends. I got acute pancreatitis. I stopped drinking, but then I started drinking again. Then in the midst of all of that, I found out that I was adopted at age 35. So imagine being depressed and suicidal and then finding out that you're adopted at 35. So now I'm like, I'm really gonna kill myself now But it didn't end there, because if y'all remember, Jam Master Jay got shot and killed. So at the time, I didn't know it was cool to get help, because I'm DMC, you know what I'm saying? Hip-hop, and I'm black, and I'm from the hood, and you ain't supposed to talk about those things. So that was one thing up against me. And then the other thing was that even though I was DMC, Michael, I didn't know where to go. I had everything in life, but I didn't have that support. So that was just basically the introduction to me becoming an alcoholic, suicide, a metaphysical, spiritual wreck who found out he was adopted at age 35 and his friend got shot. So I had all of these, I had a lot going on in my mind.
Yeah.
And I didn't solve anything. And my wife, she was telling me, motherfucker, you got I love you ladies, because y'all keep it real. Because the dudes are fronting, you know what I'm saying? And we need help, and UWill will help them. But it got to the point where, you know, I went to rehab, you know what I'm saying? And it was in rehab. I went to rehab to stop drinking. But it was in rehab where I discovered the most powerful gangster thing anybody could ever do. And that was something called therapy.
Yeah.
But real quickly, I got out of rehab, I got out of therapy, and people started seeing me. And hip hop is about keeping it real. So my whole career, I was always talking about Christmas time in Hollis, Queens, and I go to St. John's University and I got sneakers. I found out I'm a billion times more powerful when I talk about my struggles than about how life is going good for me. But when I got out of rehab, people would see me and they'd be like, DMC, man. And one of the first questions they would ask me was, why you ain't on Run's house? Because they thought it was a beef. You know, no, me and Run ain't together no more because Jam Master Jay is dead. Oh, I forgot about that. So where you been? And I would just tell them the truth. Well, I was suicidal and I was alcoholic and I went to therapy and I was in rehab. And every time I would tell somebody this, two powerful things would happen. They would look around like the CIA was there to get them. And they would check for bugs and they would say this to me. And these words are powerful. DMC. Now, they only telling me this because I'm DMC, the king of rock with Adidas, walking this way to tell you how tricky life could be. They would say this to me. I've never told anybody this, D.
Right.
Me too. And if they didn't say that, this is the one that really hurt me. I've never told anybody this, DMC, my mother, my father, my sister, all of those people knew somebody struggling, but wouldn't say nothing. That's where the stigma exists because nobody talks about it. And the last final thing was, once I met Michael, and we'll get to him in a second, I realized that the symptoms was already there. I want to tell this quick story about my first day at St. John's University, because this is what UWill is about. I get to St. John's University the first day of semester. My friend Douglas Hayes, we called him Butter. He was a fat, chubby kid that scored 50 points more than Mark Jackson from the Knicks. He was my best friend from kindergarten to 8th grade. From 9th grade to 12th grade, we always went to school together. We was always together through those whole 12 years. So we said we're gonna go to St. John's University together. That was a lie. I get to the first day of school at St. John's University, and my friend Doug's not there. So I start feeling a little funny. This is before Run DMC dropped the record, and I'm like starting to get anxiety and get nervous. So I go to the payphone, because we didn't have beepers and iPhones. None of that existed back then. I put the quarter in and I called Doug. Yo, Doug, it's the first day of school. It's the first day of school. Where you at? I'm home in bed, sleep, man. You ain't got no classes today? Let me check. He goes, checks, comes back and says, nah, man, I ain't got no class with you. Bye, hangs up on me. I turn around and I'm looking at the big campus of St. John's University. I went to orientation, went back home to Hollis, went to the pool hall, and I started drinking. I didn't go home and tell my mother how I was feeling, but from meeting you, the signs was already there. In 1993, they just exploded.
Well, Daryl, I don't exactly know how to follow that up because that is...
A lot.
Yes, but it's the bravery that I was referencing and all of the things that I've listened to, all the things I read. I'm now like committed to getting Daryl's Dream, the children's book that you've written, to all the kids that I work with in Chicago. Like I think again, what you're doing is really powerful. I know my own relationship with therapy, I was very close with the journalist, loved him, that was killed by ISIS in 2014. I'd never gone to therapy. And I look back on what would that have been like if I would have gone to therapy in college, but I grew up in poverty. So we didn't have, insurance to go to a dentist, let alone go to therapy or know anybody that went to therapy. And so I'm very inspired by what you and Michael are building around the accessibility of therapy for people to be able to access it. So Michael, could you talk a little bit about that work that's happening in colleges?
Yes, definitely. And just to be clear, I came to see DMC too. So I get it, right? We're on the same page. So with UWill, here's what we were thinking up front. We wanted to be everything that insurance wasn't. We thought about just what you just said, actually. The fact that, someone could get better help than someone else. Mm-hmm. And we just didn't want that to happen around us. So that was particularly important from the very beginning. In addition, we wanted a student to be able to drive their own therapy. So meaning, we didn't want a person to say whether or not, hey, do you deserve therapy or not? That's not great, right? Why should that be? And so for us, we built technology so that a student can gain access to a therapist based upon their needs and preferences, and then have an immediate appointment if they want, or Tuesday at 2 if they want, whatever they want. And that is of particular importance to us. And then I would say, finally, we wanted that level of, like you just said, immediacy all the time. We didn't want to put obstacles in front of people that could keep them from getting therapy. And I'd go as far as saying, if someone gets therapy from us, and maybe some professional would say, well, I don't know if they needed therapy. We're cool giving that person therapy. We think that's ideal, and we want to be different in that way, and that's the approach that we take as an organization.
Great, thank you. So when I think about working with a K-8 network of schools, I'm constantly thinking about what more resources can we bring for social emotional learning. We've done everything from more social workers to now this partnership with Ruler, where it's about the permission to feel, identifying your feelings, identifying that it's okay to be angry, that it's okay to be happy, to understand where you are on that spectrum of your feelings. Can you talk a little bit about what you would want educators to know about what they should be doing more of in terms of mental health supports?
So it's really hard, because we think about that a lot. How can we better collaborate and partner with schools? And the first thing I'd say is, it's hard to be a teacher because, at some level, they didn't have to do this 20 or 30 years ago, and now today they're essentially deciding and helping people to find the help that they need. Mm-hmm. So I think that there's only so far that they can go. On the other hand, have to know the resources within the school that you're in. I think teachers have to challenge those resources at some level, specifically based upon what they feel their students need. Mm-hmm. Because really, in the end, that teacher has to be a connector more than anything else, right? We don't want the teacher to really be giving therapy. Mm-hmm. That said, they have to be able to help that person in a proper way to gain access to what's necessary for the particular situation.
And UWill is supposed to be assistant, an assistant. We don't want to say that it's not working on the campuses. We want to be an immediate assistant so that we can fulfill all the needs of the students across the board. Because, sometimes a student might have a wait. Some students don't want to wait. I need it now and you didn't give it to me. And then some students might say, I need a minute before I go there. You know what I'm saying? And because you got to understand, you will have a problem one day. You will feel sad. You will feel confused. You will have anxiety, but you will be able to get help that you need.
So this question wasn't on the questions that we talked about, but I've since listened to you do the We Belong song, which I think is really powerful. I just got the lyrics backstage, so I'm very excited about that. Yes. But when you think about the sense of belonging and building a sense of belonging for yourself in spaces, how does therapy help that, like in terms of a sense of belonging?
First of all, therapy allows you to understand yourself. And no matter what's going on with you, I'm the greatest rapper ever, whether you believe that or not.
Woo!
And I say this because this is one of my greatest rhymes. Therapy will help you understand yourself and be okay with who you are. And when you do that, you will be able to understand other people. The who, what, where, and why you get these feelings. But the great rhyme is, if you remove the guilt and shame, you remove the pain. So we isolate ourselves when we go through things because we're so worried about what people are gonna think. I'm a weirdo, it's this, that, I'm supposed to be strong and this and that. There's nothing wrong. Matter of fact, the most powerful thing that you could do is admit that you're vulnerable or powerless or scared. That's a show of strength right there.
Yeah.
So we gotta, like we say in hip hop, we gotta flip the script so that when you go in therapy, I always tell people, the therapist doesn't help you. The therapist is a decoy so you could do two things. Repeat to yourself stuff you didn't listen to the first time that made you go further down the pit of depression, or find a new revelation. The therapist is just actually you talking to you. And once you are comfortable with addressing who you are, like my whole career, I was always on DMC in the place to be. Son of Byford, brother of Al. Banner's my mother, runs my pal. It's McDaniels, not McDonald's. These rhymes are Daryl's, those burgers are Ronald's. I ran down my family tree. My mother, my father, my brother, and me. But I'm more powerful if I talk about the things that I go through. Because every time I talk about a struggle I have, everybody else in the room has a struggle too. So, plain and simple, it's you allowing you to be you and appreciate your truth. Whether that's happiness or sadness or confusion, it's all good.
And another plug for Daryl's Dream. Someone asked me this morning, I was doing a read aloud of it, and they said, what age group is it for? And so everything you just said is in that book. And I said, I think maybe 3rd through 6th grade.
Kindergarten to 5th grade.
But I actually read it a few times and it helped me. So I think it's actually.
Every adult that reads my Daryl's Dream Kids book say every morning before I leave to go out into the world, I'm reading this book. And it's funny that
Buy the book.
It's funny that you said that because if you look at the book, our world, with all the stresses and struggles, is our relationships with our friends, our families, what's in your home, what's in your neighborhood, when you go to the local store, you know, your wife, your kids, your family, your blood relationships, what's going on in the work office. It's the same thing. A lot of the issues that we go through, it all begins when you're children. Daryl's dream, those kids' world is comparable to ours. Our world is work, home, family, friends, vacations, and everything. Their world is their home, their backyards, their streets, the classroom, and the schoolyard. And everything that we go through as adults is what those kids are going through. But when you read Daryl's Dreams, it's not just about being told what to do. It's about knowing when those situations happen that inside of you, you have everything necessary needed to get through those things. So when you look at what's going on in Daryl's Dream, that's the classroom and the schoolyard, but that's our home and that's our work environment. All of those emotions and all of those mental things start when we're younger. If we allow kids to look at themselves and love. I wrote the book so I could tell every kid, you're perfect just the way you are, regardless of what anybody thinks. Once they understand that, they will be able to deal with that. I didn't understand that as a grown guy because I never had a grown man because I never had that opportunity. So what did I do? I ran to Jack Daniels and Jim Beam, and then when I got with them, I found out Jack Daniels and Jim Beam don't really care about me. So Daryl's Dream is just an example of what we all go through as adults. That's why you connected with it.
Oh yeah, I really connected with it. It was great. Okay, so my last quick question is, after learning more about UWill, I've been thinking a lot about the college match process. So we put a lot of weight in matching kids with financial aid packages or how, the academic profile. But I'm now starting to think that we should be looking at what mental health support services are on those college campuses as well. Can one of you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. So yeah, I think about the old college search tools. They say, where do you want, which states, what setting, city, rural, suburban, and then you basically get your colleges. I think it's a lot more than that these days. It's probably evolved from tutoring, which I think is one thing that's pretty important as students are looking at colleges. They want to know what's offered for them. Learning differences has also become pretty common. Parents are being much more discerning around what's offered there. And then finally, to your question, mental health. So from my experience on recent college tours actually with a student, I would say that some are being proactive. They're talking specifically about what they have. Families are asking, how many counselors do you have? How long does it take to get an appointment? How long are those appointments? Is it confidential? Do you have to tell us if the student is getting help? They want to know and understand, and I believe some of those other things like mental health are becoming greater contributors to the choices that students are making these days, given the fact that 1 in 3 kids need something.
Yeah. Well, we have 33 seconds left. Anything else you would like to say? Do you have a new song you want to share with us?
Well, I'm doing all of this because the King of Rock thing was just a setup for what I was really put here to do.
Yes.
And one of the reasons that I'm so, thank you.
Woo!
One of the reasons why I'm so concerned with this, I remember one year in NYU, all the students were committing suicide, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And when I looked at the circumstances, everything that they was going through, I have like 10 of the mental health things that people was going through. But the reason why I was doing it was when Kurt Cobain killed himself.
Yeah.
And Chester from Lincoln Park killed himself, and then Chris Cornell killed himself. And I was like, man, what if, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I wrote a little song that just goes like this, because with the stigma only exists because we don't have dialogue and talk about it.
Yeah.
It's okay to talk about being messed up, because everybody will say me too. But I do it because of this. I'm sick and tired of the pain and the hurt. I do this for Chester, Chris, and Kurt. Death is appealing, so with death I flirt. I tell the world how I feel, and they think I'm a jerk. I'm not bugging, I'm struggling. All this guzzling is puzzling. So I went to rehab so I could stop hanging with Jack and Jim, so I could fight and show you, if you're struggling, that you can win.
Woo! You did have a song.
Yeah, it's good.
And you will win.
Thanks, Carter. Good to see you, man.